Hey, so I haven't made a video in a long time, but I figured it was time to go ahead and do it. I purchased a 1991, well, here, anyway, I'll show you right here. Yeah, my new car that I just purchased. This is the new project that I'm going to be working on. It is a 1991 Suzuki Cappuccino. Really cool car. If you're not aware of what these things are, it is a K car. It is a Japanese K car, basically a shrunken Miata. And I don't know if you can really tell from this, but this is just me next to it. It's like hilariously tiny. It's one of the things I've always thought is really funky about them, really cool. And I've wanted to own one since I was about 14 years old, playing them in Gran Turismo. So, pretty cool. This one I was able to purchase for a reasonable price, much below market value, mainly because the engine in it is, well, no easy way to say it, it's trash. It needs to be rebuilt. But considering what I have planned for the car, that is not a problem in any way, because I am planning to take the engine out and it's going to be swapped out for a pretty interesting one. I'll get into that in a little bit, but we'll go ahead and take a look around the car. It's definitely not the cleanest cappuccino that you could probably find on Craigslist, but most of those are going for between $9,000 and $11,000, depending on what is wrong with them or the particular condition they're in. I picked this one up probably for the lowest amount of money I think you probably could get one for. I paid $5,000 for the car, and I'm super happy with it. It's so cool. Like, look at this thing. It's a really cool little car. Basically a shrunken Miata. And one of the things I've always wanted to do with one of these is to take and put a different engine in it. The engines that these things came with were a 660cc 3-cylinder turbo. And they don't really make a lot of power stock. They're about 64 horsepower. Now the car only weighs 1,600 pounds. So really wasn't that big of a deal when it was new. I think the 0 to 60 is somewhere in the high 8-second range, which isn't horrible for something that's this small and was made in the early 90s. But what I have in store for it is significantly more powerful than that. The factory engines, I know that you can tune them, put a bigger turbo on them, you know, work with them a bit, better exhaust, better intake, and they can make upwards of 100 horsepower or so before you start running into problems. This one, on the other hand, it's going to be a bit more than that, because the motor that it's going in this thing is going to be absolutely ridiculous. But I figured I'd go ahead and do a walking tour around the car. So obviously, since it's a Japanese market car, it's right-hand drive. This particular one has had the dash wrapped in suede, which I think is really cool. Something that I probably would have wanted to do myself, but since it's already done, I mean, it's just better for me. And then it also has this contrasting color suede that's put down here. I'm not as fond of the color, but it works. It looks nice. It has an aftermarket head unit put in it, and the mileage on it, despite the fact that it says 23,000, I believe it's closer to 123,000, just from the quirks of Japanese cars, especially in this age range, not having a full odometer. So it's pretty cool. And this thing has some aftermarket 14-inch wheels on it. They look huge, though. Plan is to put some 15s on there. I haven't really picked out which ones I want to do. And the other cool thing about this is the roof comes out in 3 sections. I've already taken it out, so it's like a Targa. But if you pop in here, you can basically push this, pull that back, and then this slides back and is now a full convertible. And one of the things that people say about these all the time is they're always saying, well, I don't know if I would fit in there. well, I'm about 5'10", about 170 pounds. And yeah, no problem at all with spacing. Let's see if I can get out here a little bit. Yeah, kind of see. Now with the door closed, it's a little tight up against the door panel, but it's really not that bad. And yeah, I think it's a really cool car for what I paid for it. And I'll go hit the camera on the thing. Now I'll go show you what I'm swapping into it. But first, let's take a look at the engine bay. Actually, I'm kind of goofing this up a little bit because another kind of interesting thing is that the trunk pop is actually in the glove box, which I think is kind of funny, kind of cool. So everything in it, since it's a convertible, it's going to be parked with its top down at times. So they put every control to where it's able to be locked. Now I've already removed the spark plugs from it because, well, I was diagnosing what was wrong with the engine. Come to find out that cylinder number 2 and cylinder number 3 have really poor compression, about 40 psi. I put a bit of oil in there and it jumped up to 100, so I'm thinking there's something to do with the rings, possibly broken piston ring lands. But as you can see, everything in the engine bay is extraordinarily tiny, right? Very, very little components everywhere, and the battery is hilariously small. And it's actually a Japanese battery. So this thing was not in the United States long enough for it to need a replacement battery. And one of the previous owners put this little Spectre like intake filter on it. They removed the core support for some reason. And it's pretty cool. They did a bunch of maintenance on this engine before. They even put like a new turbo on it at one point. But obviously at this point, I don't really care about that. I'm going to probably just take the motor, throw it up on eBay, see what I can get for it. Probably going to take the turbo since the turbo's new. Probably throw that up on eBay. There's going to be some parts for this thing, including the transmission, that are going to be available on eBay. And then once I have those sold, well, now I don't know if I'm going to wait till they're sold, but I need to pull the engine and get the drivetrain out of it, because what is going into that. So this is what I am taking the engine out of to put in the Cappuccino. This is a 3-cylinder 2300 cc. So it's 3.5 times bigger than the engine in the Cappuccino. Pretty amazing. This has a built-in 5-speed sequential transmission. This is a 2006 Triumph Rocket 3. These are a really big, basically at the time this was produced, it was the largest motorcycle engine ever sold in a production bike. They're about 145 horsepower and about 160 foot-pounds of torque. That's sent through a shaft drive here in the swing arm. It goes back to a gear reduction radial box. I forget what they call it. They call it like a hypoid box or something. And it's individual throttle bodies from the factory. Factory dry sump, which the oil tank is right here. This is where the oil stays unless it's in the sump. And it's got a 2-stage scavenge system that pulls the oil out of the sump. Really, really cool engine. One of the things that is amazing about it is that it is a cable clutch, which the Cappuccino is natively a cable clutch as well, which is really cool. It's water cooled. It doesn't require, an air cooling jacket around the cylinders, and has a really cool noise that it makes. And I can't wait for it to be in the Cappuccino making the angry 2.3, or angry 3-cylinder noises that it makes. There's so many cool things about this engine. It would take me an hour to go over all the different aspects of why it's perfect to go in there. One of the interesting things is I've measured the engine that's in the Cappuccino, and I've measured that engine. Dimensionally, they're close to identical, which is crazy considering the displacement of the bike is 3.5 times. Like, the cylinders of this thing are huge. They're like LS cylinders, massive, right? And it's got a balance shaft in it, so it runs nice and smooth, which is great for a 3-cylinder. I'm not even sure if the Cappuccino has a balance shaft in it. I'm kind of thinking it doesn't. And also, this particular one, I was able to pick up for a really good price because the owner just sort of needed to get rid of it because he had another motorcycle. He really liked this bike, and I didn't tell him about the swap. I kind of didn't really want to make him feel kind of sad that it was going to get tore apart. But I worked it out that for what I paid for this, a lot of the parts on this bike, or once they're sold, they're going to basically pay for the bike. But I'm going to pull the bike apart, pull the Cappuccino apart, start trying to mock up the motor in there. I got to order a differential from the UK, which actually has a reverse gear built in, because that's the sort of the elephant in the room when it comes to that. But I found a really good version that's going to be awesome for that, because of the fact that there are guys in the UK that have taken these things and put Hayabusa engines and other motorcycle engines in them before. So there's a company that already builds an off-the-shelf differential that's perfect for it. Has a drop gear in it, so it's a quick change, so I can change ratios whenever I want. And also it has a clutch type 2-way LSD, which if I were to try to buy one for this car just by itself, that would have been $1,000. You know, the differential that I'm trying to buy it's $3,000, but it solves pretty much all the problems. It solves the reverse problem, it solves the gearing problem, it solves the having a limited slip differential problem, and also it solves the axle problem, because then I can put much larger axles in the car, which is going to be able to deal with that huge increase in torque. I mean, I'm going to be putting down, just with the stock Triumph motor without doing any tweaks to it, 3 times the amount of torque that the Cappuccino engine puts out. So that's going to be really good to be able to get all of that done in one shot with one thing. I'm hoping this is going to be pretty seamless, but considering nobody's done this swap before, yeah, it's going to be a lot of learning, a lot of teething problems, dealing with stuff, and I'm prepared for that. I kind of understand where I'm going with it. So I'm really excited for this whole thing, and I want to show everybody just how awesome this combination is going to be, at least the way that I think about it in my head, that it's going to be pretty fucking sick. So if I can get that done in a reasonable amount of time, I'm hoping that I can keep up the motivation to keep working on it, because I'm not very great with those types of things. I tend to be kind of lazy. So this is a big project. I'm hoping I'm going to do well with it. If you like the content, you know, all the typical YouTube things, like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. I mean, it doesn't really matter. I don't make anything off of these videos because I can't actually monetize anything. So, you know, whatever works. But a subscription, if you feel like you want to see the rest of this project, that would go a long way, and I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.